When tech billionaire Darien Cole fakes his bankruptcy to test his wife's loyalty, he discovers a chilling betrayal that shakes him to his core. As his empire crumbles, Darien uncovers his wife's cold, calculated plan to take everything: money, assets, and his dignity. Heartbroken yet determined, he decides to play the ultimate game of revenge. With the truth exposed, Darien's world is turned upside down, forcing him to rebuild from nothing. In the aftermath, he finds unexpected hope in the support of an old acquaintance, Clara. But as the dust settles, Darien realizes that love might be the greatest thing he has left. Hey family, welcome to Real Life Heart Stories. Please subscribe and give this video a like. It truly means the world to us. Don't forget to share it with your friends and loved ones, and turn on post notifications so you never miss a new upload. Thank you so much for the support. Now, sit back, relax, and let's dive into today's story. Darien Cole sat in the back of his limousine, the city lights reflecting off glass towers that he owned. Billionaire, genius, investor, media darling. But today, none of those titles mattered. Today, he was just a man trying to find out if his wife loved him, or his money. He watched the news broadcast on his phone. His staged press release was now public. The headlines spread like wildfire. Tech billionaire Darien Cole declares bankruptcy, stocks crash. Of course, it was all a lie. His wealth was safely hidden under a private trust. But to the world, including his wife, the empire was gone. His heart pounded. Will she panic? Cry? Stand with me? Or start packing? The driver opened his door. Sir, we're home. Darien stepped into the massive foyer of his $20 million mansion. Marble floors, crystal chandeliers, luxuries that now felt heavy. He found his wife, Serena, lounging on the velvet couch, eyes glued to her phone. She wasn't crying. She wasn't shocked. She was smirking. You're home early, she said casually. Darien forced a weary tone. It's been a long day. You've seen the news. Oh yes. She stretched lazily. Very surprising. He swallowed. I could use your support right now. Serena turned her phone screen toward him. It displayed bank balances, properties, assets. His heart tightened. You still have plenty, she said, almost bored. You're not exactly poor. Stop acting dramatic. Not supportive. Not comforting. Cold. Calculating. Darien sat slowly. Let's say the media is right. What if I really lost everything? Serena's eyes flickered, not with worry, but irritation. Then we'd have to adjust. Sell some cars. The mansion. My couture. We'd survive, he asked hopefully. No, she corrected sharply. I'd survive. Darien stared at her, speechless. Serena stood up, brushing invisible dust from her designer dress. I married a successful man, not a failure. So if things go downhill, Darien, don't expect me to suffer with you. The words were knives. She glanced at him one last time. I'm going to dinner with friends. Don't wait up. She walked away, perfume trailing behind her like poison. The front door shut. Silence swallowed him whole. Darien lowered his face into his palms. He didn't cry. He laughed. A low, bitter laugh. Because now he knew the truth. And tomorrow, the real test would begin. Darien woke up the next morning with a headache that had nothing to do with lack of sleep. It was heartbreak mixed with disbelief. Serena was still pretending everything was normal, humming in the kitchen as if the world hadn't just burned his life on live television. Coffee? She asked brightly, setting a mug in front of him. He stared at her, acting, he thought. She didn't look worried. She didn't look scared. She looked free. He played along. Thanks. I barely slept. Serena shrugged. A man should expect storms when he plays with lightning. The phrase struck him. Was she warning him or mocking him? He forced a broken tone. I guess I'll figure things out today. Maybe meet with lawyers. Her eyes gleamed quick, sharp. I know a lawyer. I'll send you a number. He handles cases like yours. Too fast. Too ready. She already had a plan prepared. Serena kissed his cheek. We'll survive. Don't worry. She had already said last night she would survive, not them. The moment she left the mansion, Darien grabbed his coat and followed her discreetly in a small, older car he had requested just for this fake downfall. 30 minutes later, Serena walked into a luxury rooftop restaurant. Expensive. The kind people who lost everything don't go near. Darien parked across the street and watched from a tinted window. Serena sat with a well-dressed man, maybe late 30s, confident. The two shook hands like business partners, not lovers. Darien eased the window down, listening through a recording device he'd brought, just in case. Serena, he's panicking. Good sign. We need him to believe we're on his side. Man, you're sure he'll sign the transfer? Transfer. Darien's stomach twisted. Serena, he won't question me. He's too busy protecting his ego. Man, and after the divorce? Serena smiled cold, ambitious. I take half, sell the stocks, and we disappear. You get your cut. The man chuckled. You married a gold mine. Serena raised her glass. Correction. I married a fool. Darien's heart clenched not from sadness, but from fire. She wasn't cheating with her heart, but with his life. He could have walked in, could have confronted her, could have flipped the table and exposed her right there. But he didn't. He lowered the window and whispered to himself, "Let's see how far you'll go." He backed the car away slowly, leaving her laughing above a city built with his brilliance. Now it was his turn to play pretend, and she wouldn't see the ending coming. Darien spent the next few days in a daze, the weight of betrayal heavy on his chest. His world, his empire, his marriage, his reputation was slipping through his fingers like sand. But as he watched Serena's calculated moves, he couldn't help but admire her cold precision. She was playing a game with the same intensity he had once reserved for his businesses. But this wasn't about assets or shares. This was about something far more personal. He had promised himself he would wait, let her dig herself in deeper. But he was losing control. Every day felt like a countdown to a moment of truth. It was time to take the next step. He called in a favor from an old friend, a former employee who now worked as a private investigator. The man had once helped him track down corporate leaks. Darien needed someone who could dig into Serena's life without her suspecting. A few hours later, the investigator's report hit his inbox. Serena had been busy. Too busy. She had filed for a private business license in her own name, something Darien had never known about. And there were several meetings in the past few months with high-end divorce attorneys, assets being moved to anonymous accounts, and a suspicious increase in her shopping habits. Serena was preparing for a life without him long before the bankruptcy announcement. Darien's mind whirred as he read through the findings. She wasn't just going for a divorce. She was planning an empire of her own. And he was the fool who'd built it for her. But he wasn't done yet. He had one more test to run. The following evening, Darien invited Serena to dinner, under the guise of discussing the next steps. He had arranged everything, restaurant, atmosphere, everything. But as they sat across from each other at a quiet corner table, the tension between them was palpable. She wasn't acting as the supportive wife she should have been. No, this Serena was playing a role she had rehearsed. "So what now?" she asked, stirring her wine absent-mindedly. Darien leaned back in his chair, studying her. "Now I figure out how much I'm willing to lose. You, Serena, or everything else." She blinked, eyes narrowing, but she didn't flinch. Instead, she pressed on. "Don't be melodramatic. We both know what you're really asking." Darien smiled to himself. She didn't even realize it, but he had already won. "Let's say I go along with your plan," he continued, "and let you take half, sell the stocks, and vanish. How long do you think it'll take for you to build what we had?" Serena paused. For the first time, doubt flashed in her eyes. "I don't need to build it," she said, her voice lower now. "I just need to take it." The words stung, but Darien remained calm. "I see." The dinner ended with an uneasy silence, both of them knowing what the other had planned but neither willing to give up just yet. He couldn't help but think about what it would take to ruin her carefully constructed life. But for now all he had was time. Time to make sure she played her cards the way he wanted her to. And when the moment came, she would have nowhere to run. A few more days passed, but the tension between Darien and Serena was becoming unbearable. She was colder now, more distant, and it felt as if she was already counting the days until their marriage was over. But Darien couldn't shake the feeling that she was still playing a game, and he needed to see it to the end. The final piece of his plan fell into place when he received an invitation from one of the most influential media moguls in the country, a man he'd known for years but hadn't spoken to in nearly as long. The invitation read simply, "Let's talk about the future, Darien. Let's talk about your story." It was the perfect opportunity. Darien could use the media to his advantage, twist the narrative in his favor before Serena had the chance to spin her version of events. But he would have to be careful too much, and he'd risk exposing himself as a man who was using manipulation to take back control. Too little, and Serena might pull the strings faster than he could react. He showed up at the media mogul's office, a penthouse suite with sweeping views of the city he had built. The mogul, James Locke, was waiting for him, an easy smile on his face. "Darien," Locke greeted him, standing to shake his hand. "I've been following your story closely. Very interesting turn of events, my friend." "Isn't it?" Darien said, sitting down across from him. He wasn't about to waste time. "What if I told you everything you've been hearing about me is a lie?" Locke raised an eyebrow. "A lie? The bankruptcy, the collapse of my empire. It's all part of a test." "A test? What are you playing at?" Darien leaned forward. "I need you to help me expose my wife for who she truly is." Locke's face remained unreadable for a moment, and Darien could see the wheels turning. "Go on." "I've already given her a chance to prove herself," Darien said. "But she's been planning to take everything from me for months. She's been lining up her divorce attorney, hiding assets, even meeting with investors behind my back." Locke's eyes widened. "That's bold." "It's more than that," Darien continued. "She's been playing me, playing everyone to get what she wants. And I need to make sure the world knows the truth before she pulls the rug out from under me." Locke smiled slowly. "Now that's a story worth telling." Darien spent the next few days preparing for the inevitable confrontation with Serena. He had his story and he had the media in his corner. But there was still one thing he needed: evidence. Hard, irrefutable proof that Serena had been lying, scheming, and plotting behind his back. He turned to his private investigator again, requesting one final report. The investigator didn't disappoint. He had managed to uncover everything Darien needed to confront her. Serena had been transferring large sums of money to offshore accounts under her maiden name. She had filed fake paperwork to claim ownership of several of their properties. And, perhaps most damning of all, there was a trail of communications with high-end divorce attorneys and business partners, all working behind Darien's back. Serena hadn't just been planning for a divorce. She was setting the stage for a complete takeover of his life. She was positioning herself to walk away with everything: his money, his assets, and even a future built off the destruction of everything he had worked for. The final report was a revelation. Darien sat in his office, staring at the files in front of him, the reality of it all settling like a stone in his gut. His wife, the woman he had loved, the woman he had trusted, was a stranger to him now. His empire, his trust, his heart, all lay in ruins. But he couldn't afford to show weakness. The evidence was undeniable, and the time had come to expose her for the fraud she was. He had no more patience left for games. That evening, as Serena came home, Darien was ready. He sat in the dim light of the study, the papers spread across the table in front of him. He had never seen her look so calm, so poised, as she walked in. She smiled as though everything was still normal. But Darien wasn't fooled. He could feel the tension in the air. "I know everything," he said quietly, his voice low and steady. Serena froze. Her eyes flickered toward the papers in his hand, then quickly darted away. "You've been lying to me," Darien continued, standing up. His voice was sharp now, full of resolve. "I know about the offshore accounts, the fake paperwork, the divorce attorneys. You've been planning this for months, Serena. and I'm done playing along." For a moment, Serena didn't move. Her eyes narrowed, and a cold smile crept across her face. "You think this is about the money, don't you?" "Not anymore," Darien said, his voice firm. "This is about the truth." She didn't fight it. There was no outrage, no denial. She knew it was over. Darien's heart pounded, but this time it wasn't from betrayal. It was from the power of reclaiming his life. The game was over, and this time Serena wouldn't win. The media storm hit the next morning, and Serena's carefully curated life began to unravel. Darien's exposé, backed by the undeniable proof of her betrayal, spread like wildfire across every news outlet. Headlines screamed, "Billionaire's wife schemes behind his back documents reveal shocking betrayal." Serena's name was plastered across the internet, the television, and the front pages of every tabloid. The truth was out, and it painted her as the cold-hearted opportunist she truly was. But what shook Darien the most wasn't the media frenzy. It was the look on Serena's face when the story broke. She didn't fight it. She didn't try to claim innocence. She had no defense. As Darien watched the news unfold, he felt a strange sense of peace. The empire he had built was gone. The marriage, too, had crumbled. But in exchange, he had regained control over his own story. Serena had been exposed for who she really was, a woman who would do anything for power, wealth, and security, no matter who she had to destroy to get it. The divorce proceedings began quickly, the lawyers working like well-oiled machines. Serena's attempts to salvage anything from the situation only made her look more desperate. Darien had already moved his assets into secure, untouchable accounts. She couldn't touch what was truly his, no matter how hard she tried. The public reacted with a mixture of shock and disdain. Many saw her as a villain, others as a victim of the billionaire lifestyle gone wrong. But no one truly understood what Darien had endured. No one except him. He had been married to a woman who had never truly loved him. She had seen him as a means to an end, a man whose fortune was a prize to be claimed, not a husband to cherish. It didn't surprise Darien that she didn't try to reach out, didn't beg for reconciliation. Serena wasn't the type to apologize. She was the type to move on quickly, leaving destruction in her wake. The days that followed were a blur of meetings with his lawyers, financial advisors, and business partners. Darien had to salvage what remained of his reputation, but he found solace in the fact that, for once, he wasn't pretending anymore. He wasn't the perfect billionaire. He wasn't the flawless businessman. He was just a man, broken but not beaten. His phone buzzed. It was a text from Clara. "I'm here if you need to talk." For the first time in a long time, Darien smiled. Maybe, just maybe, there was hope for him yet. The storm had passed, and now the rebuilding would begin. Weeks passed since the media storm, and Darien found himself slowly rebuilding his life from the ground up. His empire, the one that had once defined him, was gone. Its towers crumbled like a forgotten monument. His marriage, too, had fallen apart, but now there was no bitterness in his heart, only clarity. The days of pretending were over. Serena's betrayal had opened his eyes to the truth. Money, success, and status didn't define who he was. And in the aftermath, Darien had discovered something far more important, his own resilience. As for the people who remained in his life, Darien found himself surrounded by those who truly cared. His loyal staff had been reduced to a handful of close confidants, the ones who had always believed in him beyond his wealth. The others had scattered, and Darien couldn't bring himself to blame them. They had never been part of his life, they were part of his empire. And in that moment, he realized the difference. The empire could be rebuilt, but the people who mattered, those who believed in him, not his fortune, were the ones who would stand by his side. One of those people was Clara. Clara had worked under him years ago, before the marriage, before the wealth had consumed him. She had always admired his mind, his vision, but never the man he had become. Darien hadn't seen her in years, but she had reached out after the news broke. At first, he was hesitant to respond. He wasn't sure what she wanted. Maybe she was just another person curious about the downfall of a billionaire. But when she reached out again, this time asking if he needed someone to talk to, Darien realized she was different. Clara didn't care about the money. She didn't care about the business. She simply cared about him, the real him, the man beneath the layers of wealth and power. It had been a long time since Darien had felt seen like that. One afternoon, as they met for coffee at a quiet cafe, Darien couldn't help but feel a sense of peace he hadn't known in years. Clara listened to him, really listened, as he spoke about the things he wanted to change in his life, about how he wanted to rebuild not just his wealth but his own sense of purpose. "You've got this," she told him, her voice soft but firm. "The empire doesn't define you. You do." For the first time in a long time, Darien believed her. And with Clara by his side, Darien was ready to rebuild not just the business empire he had lost, but a life filled with purpose, loyalty, and, hopefully, love. The road ahead wouldn't be easy, but it would be real, and that was all that mattered. Darien woke early the next morning, the soft glow of the sunrise spilling through the window. He stood there for a moment, looking out over the city, a city that had once been his to command, but now felt different, felt distant, and for the first time in months, Darien realized he didn't mind. He wasn't the man he had been, and that was okay. The past few weeks had changed him. Losing everything had been painful, but it had also given him the freedom he had never truly known. The weight of his former life was gone, and though he still had moments of longing for the security that wealth had provided, he knew something deeper had shifted. He was ready for something more, something real. The phone on the kitchen counter buzzed, snapping him out of his thoughts. It was Clara, as it often was these days. They'd spent more time together, talking, laughing, finding common ground. She had become his anchor in the storm, the one person who didn't look at him through the lens of his past success. She saw him, Darien Cole, the man, not the billionaire. He smiled as he read her message. "Meet me at the park. I have something for you." He hadn't expected anything from Clara. She was a quiet force in his life, not one to make grand gestures. But there was something in her that had always understood him in ways no one else could. The park was just a few blocks away, and Darien walked there with a sense of calm he hadn't felt in years. The fresh air, the trees, the simple beauty of the world. It was a stark contrast to the cutthroat life he had once lived. It felt like the first step in his real journey. When he arrived, Clara was sitting on a bench, holding a small envelope in her hands. As Darien approached, she stood up and handed it to him without a word. His fingers brushed against hers briefly, and in that moment, he felt a connection that went beyond everything he had ever known. Opening the envelope, Darien found a small card inside, along with a handwritten note. "I believe in you. Let's build something together. From the ground up." He looked up at Clara, her eyes filled with warmth and something more. Hope. She wasn't offering him a business deal. She was offering him a future one where he could finally be himself. In that quiet park, surrounded by the sounds of birds and rustling leaves, Darien realized that he had everything he needed to start again. Not with wealth or titles, but with trust, love, and a woman who believed in him. And that, he thought, was worth more than anything he had ever built before. We've come to the end of the story. I hope you enjoyed it. Leave a like and subscribe to my YouTube channel for more interesting stories.